Welcome to Border Talks. Thank you for joining us tonight. We will first hear a few introductory remarks by Dr. Çağrı Kahveci on BV NeMO and the project Wir sind viele, gegen rassismus und diskriminierung. In English, we are many against racism and discrimination.
Hello, you are welcome, and I thank you for your coming and contribute to this event. I will briefly introduce my organization, BV NeMO, Bundesverband Netzwerk von Migrantenorganisationen. In English, Federal Association of Networks of Migrant Organizations is a nationwide association of local alliances and local umbrella organizations of migrant organizations. To date, more than 700 migrant organizations in 20 cities have joined together in the Federal Association to form cross-cultural, cross-ethnic, and secular alliances. It represents the interests of local networks of migrant organizations at the federal level and advocates for more participation of migrant perspectives. The Federal Association offers its members a platform for exchange and nationwide networking, as well as further development of their competencies. As a federal association, it is also a contact for politics and civil society, as well as advisor on issues of inclusion, participation, critical development policy, and anti-racism. The project Wir sind viele, gegen Rassismus und Diskriminierung, we are many against racism and discrimination, takes up existing critical debates against racist exclusion and discrimination ground, and tries to intervene in public debates to represent the interest of migrants, people of color, Black people, through a broad alliance policy. The project pursues three concrete main goals. Firstly, we generate and convey critical knowledge about strategies for action and dealing with racism and discrimination. Secondly, we contribute to an open exchange in the urban society within the framework of citizens' dialogues and events. In addition, we promote exchange and networking with other initiatives and organizations affected by discrimination. I'm very happy that this exciting event is taking place this evening, and I hope we have a lively exchange and discussion. I thank you again for your contribution. So I pass the word on to you, Vera.
Thanks a lot for this introduction. So yes, the event tonight is part of the project Wir sind viele, gegen rassismus und diskriminierung. And what we'll do tonight is to discuss the multiple manifestations of Europe's racialized borders and boundaries, as exclusion and controls are not limited to Europe's external land and sea borders, but extend to numerous other spaces within the metropole, such as refugee camps and train stations. Thus, the border manifests itself every time state authorities apprehend undocumented people, no matter where. We will speak about these kind of material borders, but we also uncover immaterial boundaries that may be harder to grasp, but nevertheless exert their harmful impact on everyday life. So overall, we will discuss the interconnections between migration, asylum, and racism in Germany, as well as Europe's increasingly sophisticated biopolitical border regime. And to discuss these topics, I'm very pleased to welcome our three fantastic speakers for tonight. First, I'm happy to welcome Abubakar Sidibe, who is an activist and filmmaker. His first film, Les Auteurs, Those Who Jump, documents the situation and his experiences at the Spanish-Moroccan land border. This film won awards by the Berlinale Filmforum, Documenta Madrid, and Amnesty International, to name but a few. Abu's second film, Ma Nouvelle Vie Européenne, My New European Life, documents the borders that he encountered upon arriving in Germany. We will see short extracts of both films tonight, but I highly recommend to watch both films in full length if you ever get the chance. I've watched them several times and I learn something every time. Secondly, I am happy to welcome Laura Lambert, who who is a doctoral researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Social Anthropology and investigates changes in the asylum system in Niger in the context of EU externalization policies. She spent 13 months in Niger and interviewed various actors of the asylum and migration regime. Moreover, Laura is part of the Network for Critical Migration and Border Regime Studies, CRIPNet, and also coordinates the West Africa Working Group for Migration Control.info. I recommend to check out that website because it really has lots of useful information on the externalization of Europe's borders into the African continent. And last but definitely not least, I want to welcome Muhammad Al-Kashef, who is a human rights lawyer, activist, and researcher. He is co-founder of the Refugee Solidarity Movement in Alexandria and a member of Watch the Med Alarm Phone since 2016. He works as an advocate and consultant researcher on migration policies and border control in the context of EU affairs with North African countries. He coordinates several projects with refugees in Berlin for inexile.de. And I'm Vera Fried. I'm a PhD researcher in Berlin. And as you have probably guessed by now, I'm moderating the event tonight. So for our discussion, we will start by analyzing Europe's external land and sea borders. Then we trace the externalization of the border to non-European countries. And finally, we will discuss the material and immaterial borders and boundaries within Europe, especially in Germany. Before we start with that, I will make a few logistical announcements for those who joined. So in the beginning, we have a moderated discussion, and then in the end, we move to questions from the audience, and we're really looking forward to your questions. We will have a 15-minute break in the middle around 7, so you can get something to drink or something to eat, have a break. And I want to say again that this event is being recorded. So if you do not want to have your face recorded, you can turn off your camera. We will stop recording when we start the Q&A session. And in that Q&A session, you can either ask your questions directly or you can post them in the chat. And you're welcome to ask questions in German as well. We can just translate them. After this event, BV NeMO will produce an edited video of this event for future use, and they will blur the faces of participants so that in the final video, only the faces of the speakers are visible. Okay, so that brings me to the first topic for tonight, which is the Spanish-Moroccan land border. The Spanish-Moroccan land border is the only land border between Europe and the African continent. More specifically, this is the border between Morocco and the two Spanish enclaves, Ceuta and Melilla. These enclaves are fortified with multiple high fences and surveillance cameras to prevent people from crossing them. Those who do manage to cross the fences are systematically pushed back by Spanish border guards. Thus, people are stuck in Morocco where they face very difficult conditions and violence by Moroccan authorities. We will now watch a short extract of Les Sauteurs, those who jump, filmed by Abu on Mount Gurugu, close to the Spanish border fences.
Donc, il a commencé, hein? Il va filmer les gens, ouais. Même s'il voit, il n'y a rien.
Non, non, il n'y a rien. Il veut filmer, non?
Ouais, non, il n'y a pas de quoi.
Ah bon?
Ouais, qu'on voit.
Ah non, non, quand on voit. Tu as vraiment fait personne fait une filière.
Oh, il a pesé de là, quoi. Et militaire de nota.
Wallah, quand on sent qu'il y a un bien.
C'est pas bon. Nyengo. Voilà, coup de tâche.
Non, je crois.
Inch'Allah. Sénégal.
Vous la caméra.
Ouais, les la tête.
Ah, non, c'est
Ah bon?
Ouais. Non.
la caméra sera là.
Jamais fait du mal.
Ouais. Maman on a blanc là.
Qui a fait le milieu de quoi?
Ouais.
On a daulé. Bon voilà, Bounidal même qui est là. Le Benguis.
Le futur Benguis.
Le futur Benguis.
Bientôt. Bientôt j'irai en Europe.
Oh, tu peux replier un peu, tu peux pousser derrière un peu, ça va me faire plaisir.
Bientôt je vais aller en Europe.
Oui.
Non, le zoom, tu laisses le zoom.
Non, le zoom est laissé, oui.
Repère Yanni. Bientôt tu vois, j'y serai là-bas en Europe. La montagne du Gourougou. La fameuse. La sainte. La divine. L'espoir et le désespoir. La vie ainsi que la mort. C'est un nouveau monde.
eti kerol Espagne to ɓe mbayi toon caméra ji jamma
Roger Flane a Flane so Flane Chamanjala.
Ay, non, ni Maroc, ni Afrique. Voilà,
so giwruɗon e kerol to fof e Espagne ɓe jiyoɗon
non, tiens, il doit.
aɗa wawi rewde banggueji fof kono sa rewe wuuro heɓe jaggete
Ça fait 15 mois que je vis à Gourougou. Je ne sais plus combien de fois j'ai sauté la barrière. Il y a un mois que Maurice et Stéphane sont venus à Gourougou. Ils m'ont demandé si je voulais faire un film sur ma vie dans la forêt.
We just watched the first 5 minutes of Abu's film, Les Sauteurs, Those Who Jump. And Abu, my first question goes to you. In the film, we saw the very difficult conditions on Mount Gourougou in Morocco. We also saw you talking to a friend who had to redo his measuring jug because all the belongings had been destroyed by the police yet again. We saw how close you are to the Spanish fences and to Melilla, but how at the same time it is almost impossible to cross them. And so I want to ask you to tell us a bit more about these scenes, about the situation at the Spanish-Moroccan border, and about what happens in the rest of the film.
First of all, I have to thank you so much, to invite me on this platform and to share my story with you guys. Yeah, this movie was about our condition life in Mount Gourougou. The mount is in Morocco, in border between Spain enclave and Morocco village, Biniansa, top of the mountain in the forest. It's a place there where we used to live before us. Many migrants was living there before us. And when we came on this mountain, we have the same goal. And the goal is to overcome the fence, the tree fence high to 6 meters. Yeah. And then, the life condition there is not easy. It's about many things. It's about to be strong. It's about to keep your faith. It's about to be for one another. And it's about, to be social. It's about to be, to be strong and to have faith, and to believe that so you will make it. Yeah. And with that, we are obliged, to live together, to understand each other, and to organize our daily life, so in the right way, because we are living so in the jungle, and then which means so we have to be so in the right way and to understand each other. Otherwise, it can turn to another things, Yeah. When I got this camera, I got this camera from two filmmakers, one German and one Danish. And they just wanted, to record our daily life. But with them, it would not be easy, for them, to record it. They need one migrant, among those who are living so on this mountain, to record his daily life. And so I've been so the lucky one, to have to be so in contact with them. And I got to the camera, and the first time when I got to the camera, my idea and my vision was just, to have money from them, to record so my daily life. And I was not supposed to, to record everything, it was not so my things. Say, okay, let me just, record some image and give them, because, and I will get money, back. And when I realized 2 weeks later, I realized that it would be very necessary, to record and to be focused on this camera, to get this camera like so my friend, and to record so my daily life, to make story. And from that point, I decided to make it. And life from Gorugu is not easy. As you said, Vera, it's a close to Spanish enclave. And, people will say, okay, it's close. You're on a mountain, you can see so the fence, and how it's not easy for you, to jump the fence. Yes, some will ask that. It's correct. It's not easy. Why it's not easy? Because so the fence is surrounded by the military and the police, and also an auxiliary forces auxiliary is another corps, military corps. It's not a police. It's not a military. They are another security, fence security, and with that, we have to make our own plan, to our own strategy, how to attack the fence. And we need so the guys who will go there every day, every night, to check so the police in a position, and to call so the chief on the mountain to say, okay, because we are organized in the group, every community. There is Malian community, there is a Cameroonian, there is a Ivorian, there is Senegalese, there is Nigeria. Every community has also its own chief, and the chief has also his own minister, and also its own police. As the police belong to the police to go and check the police position, Moroccan police position, and to call to the chief to say, okay, today or maybe we have so the position is good, so we can attack defense. And that's the way that we use to attack defense. It's our strategy to attack defense. And sometimes it's not about that, it's about what we are living. And if so, the police, Moroccan police or military come usually every day to attack us, to chasing us on mountain, to intimidate us, and we are in an obligation to attack the fence at the night. And yeah, it's like that. And yeah, just, it's not easy. Yeah, really.
Yes, I think it's really a very, very important film because you document so many things, and you also manage to, for instance, film how the Moroccan police and force auxiliaire come and raid the camp and destroy everything, and then you come back and everything is burnt.
Yeah.
But what I like about the scene is that it also shows how, you were hiding some things and the police didn't find them. And there is another scene that I really like, which is, where you are building the shoes with nails in order to be able to climb the fence, which is really has very fine mesh.
Yeah.
And then someone says, this is my visa to Europe.
Yeah.
And I think, that's so important, because the reason why you cannot cross like someone with European citizenship is because there's no visa in the first place, right? I mean, people with European citizenship, they just take the ferry or they walk through the fence. Some people are able to get visas, but those who are stuck in Gurugu cannot get those visas. So you build it with this shoe and then to climb the fence.
Yes, as you said, visa Eva Vera, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So on mountain, there is a lot of different group of person, and it's not easy. Why? So we are on this mountain, we want to get Europe. And in our country, it's not easy to get visa. If you need visa, you need a lot of money and to pay your visa. And sometimes you can pay a lot of money, which not mean you will get visa. And that's why many people, many young men decide, to choose the underground way, which is also this way, or go through the sea, Mediterranean Sea. But those who think, they don't have money, even money, to pay this boat on Libya side, decide, to come on the Morocco side and to claim the fence. And beside the Mount Gurugu, there is also those who want to pay money, those who has money, to pay the boat and to get in the Melilla. But me and others, so we don't have money. We decided, to claim the fence. For us, it's the easy way. And so they modified the fence. They modified the fence in March 2014 when 600 persons overcame the fence in 3 minutes. And from that day, so they decided, European Union decided to modify the fence. Why? Because they say, okay, many people are overcoming the fence, and it's not because so we have to, to change or to modify the fence to do not let them or, to claim the fence with, in easy way. They modify the fence and our finger could not no more enter between the fence, and then we tried several times and we didn't find no way. And that's why we try lot of strategy, and any strategy that we try didn't work. And then we decided, okay, if so we want to overcome this fence, then we have to think about how to bring another idea, and then we decided to think about shoe, to put some kind of iron under the shoe, and also iron like a finger, to turn it like a finger, those who can enter in this fence. And from that, we tried one time and it's worked. When it's worked, and we said, okay, that's our way, to overcome this fence. And from that day, that was our plan, the plan for Gurugu, for a lot of, for all community living in Gurugu, to try the fence with that way. And was the thing that's work. And then, it was the easy way. And so the authority, Moroccan authority and European Union, so they didn't understand how, so we managed, to overcome the fence with all those stuff and the camera, and they did some modification. And yeah, it was a success for us. Yeah.
Yes, and as you just mentioned, so some people try to overcome the Spanish border fences in Melilla as well as Ceuta, the other enclave, but then also others try to cross by boat. So I would move to the next topic, the Mediterranean Sea border, which is also a very dangerous and difficult route to come to Europe. The death toll in the Mediterranean continues to rise, and instead of providing a safe haven and legal routes, European actors criminalize civil rescue. But activists continue to provide support, for instance, the alarm phone, which is a hotline for people in distress at sea. And I'm happy that we have Kashef here. So Kashef, could you describe in more detail the current situation in the Mediterranean and also explain to us how the alarm phone intervenes into this situation?
Thanks, Vera, and thanks everyone for having me here. I would just, before talking about the situation in the Mediterranean, I would just to highlight something like Ceuta and Melilla. Actually, it's an African land. It's the African territory under the Spanish authority. So we still live the post-colonial era, and as Abu Bakr said, that the EU invented a lot on this fence, because Ceuta and Melilla by the end is EU, European territory. And that gives us a kind of idea of the situation even in the Mediterranean. For example, when it comes to alarm phone work, so we had almost 14 cases in the last 2 weeks in the 3 different regions. The Western Mediterranean, which is Morocco, Algeria, with Spanish, there was 7 cases, 2 from West Sahara and 1 from Algeria, and 1 case close to Ceuta. And there is 1 that arrived in Melilla, and 1 case from 1010 that was ended as a shipwreck, and 9 people missing, 2 survivors and 2 dead bodies. In the Aegean region, there was 5 cases from the region, 1 in Evros region, and we also documented pushbacks. There is a lot of pushbacks happen by sea or by land from Greece to Turkey. In the central Mediterranean, we had just 2 cases, and both cases were deported or embarked from Tunisia. Also, if we see or look at the civil fleet or the civil rescue in the Mediterranean, we will find the 2 ships belong to Sea-Watch are still detained, and the appeals is still at the administrative court in Palermo. The SOS Mediterranean, the Ocean Viking, also still detained in Italy. Mediterranean, the Mare Jonio ship is also, it's in the shipyard for maintenance, and also Mediterranean trying to explore opportunities for a new vessel with Italian flag. The only ship there is Open Arms, and it's under the quarantine. This is in the central Mediterranean. In the Aegean, Mare Liberum is still suffering from the legal procedures against them, and the freezing. Mission Lifeline also, they started their first monitoring mission on the Canary Islands. They just finished it, but there is no rescue mission. And the mission with the new ship Rise Above still in the preparation. And that's show us how the EU and the European authorities criminalizing the efforts of the civil society, also the lack of assistance. They are super active in the securing the borders, also active on the pushbacks under the eyes of everyone observing. They are super active in detain migrants and also in deportation and return migrants back either to transit countries, such like North African countries, or to the country of origin. And unfortunately that there is no real intention, there is no real will to modify or to make the situation better for migrants. No, there is actually a war against migrants. So when we see that there is over 113 deaths, mandatory deaths, that's what we know about since early November, and there is almost over 70 cases, that give us that shows people still want and still willing to cross the sea, still wanted to face the risk just to cross the sea, to arrive to Europe, because they are searching for safe place. And as mentioned before, the problem is the visa, the global visa system. All the obstacles and difficulties, the bureaucratic burden that you put on the shoulder of the people just flee. Ask them to apply for visa, to provide such certain documents, which is really hard for them. And no politician wanted to discuss reformation or to regulate the asylum. Even if I deserve to apply to asylum in a transit country, I cannot apply for asylum in a transit country. So it's kind of a blocking the way in front of the migrants, trying to keep them in this dilemma. And after that, denying even the right of asylum. When people arrive to Europe, when they arrive to the front shores, Greece, Italy, Spain, we see and document how much deportation and pushbacks happen. And even there is pushback by proxy. For example, when we see that the Moroccan police and the Navy just fighting against the migrants, they are burning the camps. They don't provide them the fundamental rights for a human being. So there's a big political, I would say, crisis. It's not a migration crisis. This is a political crisis. And the migrants flow will keep going and people will keep crossing the sea until there is a solution, until they find a safe space, a safe place for them to continue their living.
Yes, absolutely. As you just described, Europe operates a very deadly deterrence regime with deportation, pushbacks, lack of rescue, letting die in the Mediterranean. And furthermore, Europe also cooperates with third states to externalize the border and to operate border controls far beyond Europe's territory. And thereby, by cooperating with third states, Europe not only outsources control, but also outsources some of the consequent human rights violations. And we already spoke a bit about Morocco and the raids conducted by Moroccan police forces. Then there's, of course, Libya as the probably most notorious example, with many documented cases of torture, arbitrary detention, and inhuman treatment. But at least to me, it seems that there's less information available on how exactly externalization works even further south, such as in Niger. And so I'm very glad that we have Laura here too. And I want to ask you to describe a bit more how the externalization of Europe's borders impacts on the asylum and migration regime in Niger.
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, to Chara and Ela for organizing this event. I think it's very important to have these different spaces and sites also in a conversation, and also to Vera for this excellent moderation. I think we already heard a very good overview on what kind of border control is happening in the Maghreb and also in the Mediterranean. And as Vera already mentioned, I would like to go down a little bit further south, and I would also like to focus more on a maybe humanitarian aspect rather than on border control, and to show also how this is interlinked with border control in a very tight sense. And maybe let me start shortly with Niger. Before 2016, there was never a German chancellor who actually visited Niger. And since then, Angela Merkel has come there a few times. So I think this is quite a good example to show that that there was no real European interest in Niger and in the situation of the country before it became a close partner for Europe in terms of what we can call a border externalization, or also generally externalization. So if I speak about externalization, I generally mean that countries like the European Union push their migration control outside of their own territorial space, like we already heard in the Mediterranean through what was Kashif saying, people getting intercepted and pulled back to Libya. Or states also outsource these roles to third countries, to private actors or international organizations. So if I speak about private actors, these are the most bad guys we can imagine, private security companies and weapon dealers who make billions of euros through these cooperations. And obviously, as Vera already mentioned now, there are a lot of concerns linked to this kind of policy, like we already heard also in Kashif's talk, and regarding the horrible situation in Libya. But let me give you some more impressions on what I observed in Niger. And I mean, first of all, Niger is a country in West Africa. It's about 3,000 kilometers south of Europe's borders, southern borders. And since 2016, it has nevertheless become a central borderland for the European Union due to this role as a transit state between West Africa, Central Africa, and the Maghreb. And I think most of you will have likely heard the story how Niger has started to crack down on migrants traveling these routes for quite considerable EU funds and also for some prestige. As I said, Angela Merkel coming to Niger is the symbolic importance for a Nigerian government. But the story that has less often been told is that the EU also started to strengthen refugee protection in third countries. And this is also what happened in Niger. So there were funds by the European Union, especially through something that is generally called the Regional Development and Protection Programs. And these funds were given to the UNHCR to support capacity building in the asylum institutions in Niger, and also to generally strengthen refugee protection in countries of origin. And the idea behind this is, as I already want to mention now, to reduce refugee flows to Europe. So to keep people close to their countries of origin, provide protection there, and thereby reducing migration, actually. But I mean, mostly it could also be, it sounds like a good thing, right? To increase protection somewhere is difficult to criticize in one way. And of course, as I already mentioned now, I think the problem is that it is connected very closely with migration control. So it's not just the idea of strengthening protection somewhere, but it's very tightly linked to, okay, let's not have these people come to Europe. And this is a very racialized image of people who are meant as well. So for example, the UNHCR in Niger argued that by reaching out to asylum seekers and making them apply for asylum in Niger, they could avoid the dangerous route through the Sahara and the Mediterranean, where they could die, as also the reality, as Kashif just told us. And instead, they could find protection in Niger. This has been described in the literature as a humanitarian border, so saving lives and thereby introducing a border, actually. So you offer a little bit of assistance to someone, and then you make them you try to dissuade them to actually move forward. But I mean, what I saw in my research in Niger in these 30 months I was there was, for example, that I have to say, Niger is the most underdeveloped country in the world, according to the UN Development Program. So this is something, of course, we can debate as well. But the point is that Niger is very rich in natural resources like uranium and oil, but it's very poor and it has very weak structures, which is, of course, due to post-colonial exploitation. So how do you think will refugees live in a country where basically everyone else is poor and there's not enough assistance for anyone? So I think if I spoke to refugees who lived there, they often applied for asylum, but then they couldn't find, or they found themselves in very difficult living situations where they maybe had to work in exploitative jobs if they could find something, or they would try to find another way of migrating, or they were considering to return to their countries of origin. This is maybe somewhat similar to what we see today in Moria and other problematic sites, but I think it poses the question of what does protection actually mean if we do not provide adequate living conditions for people. So we see, okay, people can have can file an asylum request, maybe they get a little bit of assistance, but it doesn't put them in a situation where they feel really protected, and it makes them also move on again if possible. So this is one of the ambivalent consequences that I saw in the on-the-ground implementation of these EU policies of strengthening refugee protection. And the second one would be linked to the asylum office in Niger. I did a little internship there. And what I found out in place was that, okay, there was a big staff increase, and there were also a lot of missions and capacity building trainings organized for staff. But the people who had access to these missions were not the staff who actually worked on the asylum files, but rather their directors and bosses. So we could see some people profited very strongly of this EU externalization and others didn't. But the idea of the EU and the UNHCR who would get capacity building was not what was fulfilled. So basically the capacity building was much weaker than what could be expected. And also people were really unsatisfied with their work conditions. So they were not meant to stay long in the office. They were considering finding other jobs. And I think this highlights a little bit there is a very unequal gain in externalization. Those who profit are those who can put their requests in these societies forward, and others don't. And of course, this is not something of an individual misbehavior of the directors, but rather a structural question of the asylum office being organized as a project with external funding, and also of widespread social norms in Niger, like, for example, clientelism, where people try to care for their closed ones first and then look out for others, which is how society is structured in a way. And maybe just to mention the last point of these unintended consequences, a lot of state agents mentioned to me that they perceived a loss of power and sovereignty, while they saw the UNHCR and the EU as profiting from these developments. And if we look at this relationship, it's of course very problematic because it's a very post-colonial relationship between state agents and then also the UNHCR agents and the EU. And some state agents, of course, also try to mobilize against it. But this is also something where we can ask ourselves, so what kind of relationship is this today in the 21st century, and how should we look at it? So these are maybe 3 examples of some of the ambivalent consequences that I found. What happens when the European Union tries to strengthen asylum procedures and refugee protection, where if we decontextualize this, might think it's a good thing, it's a good development, but if we contextualize this, we see it's tightly linked to border control, and it causes also very ambivalent consequences on the ground in Niger. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this very insightful explanation of how externalization works in Niger, and also pointing out some of the contradictions within the migration control and asylum and protection regime. And also, of course, how all of this is connected to what happens in other countries, both in Africa and in Europe. And this brings me again to Kashef, because Kashef also did research on the situation in Egypt. So Kashef, maybe you could add a bit on the workings of EU externalization in Egypt. That would be great. Thank you.
So actually, when it comes to Egypt, you will not find big differences. Like if we are talking about UNHCR and its role and the interagencies in Egypt, it has no differences than Niger. Like UNHCR, instead of being a protection international agency, represent the refugees and defending their rights, it became kind of an international relief organization, when they are just responsible for distributing the financial assistance and implementing the food program from the World Food Organization. And it's so silly, actually, because when you face them, they complain about the Egyptian context. They complain there is no national refugee law. The Egyptian authorities don't give us the space to work and to operate. But when you look closely to the situation, you will find that there is even no legal department to represent refugees in different legal issues. You will find that people with asylum seeker card, which is a colored yellow in Egypt, they have to apply every 6 months to renew their residence. And when you ask the Egyptian government why, they said that because they are asylum seekers, they are not convented refugees. They don't have the status. So we have to check every 6 months who's still here. And when you go to the UNHCR and ask why you don't make such interviews and interview people and give them the status, they said the Egyptian government deny us from doing that. So you keep going between UNHCR and the Egyptian government. And then you find a lot of agreements between EU and EU member states and the Egyptian state in the context of border security and migration control. So you will find Egypt receives 60 million euros every year from the African Trust Fund, just for which called migration management, just to manage the migration. They receive assists, military equipments, Navy assists every year from Italy, France, Germany, just to keep the borders secure. There is, you will find the Khartoum process. Like actually after EU established a good strategy in West Africa, it wanted to copy it again in the Eastern Horn and the Middle East, Egypt and Sudan. So you will find the Khartoum process when they gathered Somal, Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan together just to make or to implement the European agenda on the region and to make a joint military operation around the borders. And then also to change the law itself and to invent new laws and new governmental bodies just to follow the European instructions, so they deserve the funds, they deserve the support. Even the Egyptian president himself understand how it's crucial for EU to control migration. And he was, in one of his speeches, he was talking, saying that I have 5 million refugees in a country, so don't talk with me about human rights, because I'm the secure key for you here. Otherwise, you will find the Mediterranean waves carry these people to your land. So it was a kind of direct threat to European politicians, just to keep the collaboration. How it's that the border or the externalization borders happening in Egypt, we will find also joint Navy operation in the Mediterranean. Egypt has a quite strong Navy. It's not, there is a state, still there is a state. It's not the case of Libya. So they are actually funding and investing on the Egyptian Navy with submarines, with high-tech monitor equipment, and also the borders between Egypt and Sudan. Now they are building a new, like a high-tech border monitoring equipment. The borders between Egypt and Libya, because Egypt, with the help of EU, succeeded kind of closing its sea border, the Mediterranean border. So after 2017, there is no more boats departure directly from Egypt. So what happened that they just swept the departure to be from Libya, and people just cross by land from Egypt to Libya. In 2017, 2018, under the name of fighting terrorism, the Egyptian security and military increased the border security with Libya. And since then, from time to time, there are always detainees, like migrant detainees. There's raids on the migrants community. And the situation itself unspoken. No one speak, no one discuss the situation in Egypt, how the Sudanese community, the Somalian, Ethiopian, Eritrean communities in Egypt really suffer. All the people are just waiting for a chance to find a different way. Also, the borders with Israel, between Egypt and Israel and Sinai, closed since 2013. So, and still until this moment, EU and especially actually France and Germany invest on the Egyptian regime and invest on making, let's say, they are the watchdog, the Southern Guard. They are supporting with their region strategies. They give them even, there is a border security training, which is called the ETIBA, started by the Italian police in the police academy in Cairo, training 30 African nationalities, like training policemen from different 30 African nationalities. That was in 2016. Since 2018, there is other collaboration from France and Germany specifically to train border security and also to work on the recognition, the face recognition. So Europe actually provide Egypt, especially with the high-tech equipments, money, military equipment, knowledge, just to control the migration flow from Horn Africa. And in the latest situation in Ethiopia, in East Ethiopia, and people started to flee to Sudan, we see how EU actually moved fast, trying to handle the situation so there is no more pressure on their externalized borders.
So there are really many obstacles, both at the external border itself, but then also beyond the external border. And even after that, after people managed to cross the externalized border, the external border, the difficulties don't end, which brings me to the next topic, which is the internalization of the
Vera?
border. Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, so I would like to add something on what Kashef
Yes.
said about interview in asylum so in Egypt, and I would say I think so it's the same way also here so in Germany. So he said the asylum seeker interview take long so in Egypt, and here in Germany also it's the same. Germany is I would say Germany. In Germany here is worse, and because so here is the Federal Republic, and so the state has not so the same way to treat the asylum seeker here. Some states here, so the way that they treat asylum seeker, some people can take longer than 1 year and a half, for some 2 years. I know people here, those who are living here since 2016, and they do not, no more, don't have so their first interview here. and they are still living here, and they are not receiving money. They are just receiving the ticket, to go and take food in some supermarket. Not all supermarket, just some few supermarkets here in Germany. And it's just to say how the asylum seeker, how they are suffering here. So also here in Germany, not only in Egypt.
Absolutely. Which I think is a very good bridge to maybe watch a short extract from your second film, Abu, which is called Ma Nouvelle Vie Européenne, My New European Life. So we can watch a short extract from that film, which precisely documents the borders and boundaries that you encounter in Germany.
Mon dernier film m'a permis d'entrer en contact avec plusieurs personnes en Europe. Les gens prêtaient attention à ce que je disais. J'ai parlé de mes expériences, mon histoire, de ma vie ici. On échangeait les idées. C'était spécial. Un homme noir devant un auditoire blanc. Même si à la fin je devrais retourner dans mon camp, beaucoup de mes frères n'ont pas eu cette chance. Filmer dans le Heim en Allemagne est tout à fait différent de filmer au Maroc sur la montagne. Là-bas, c'était l'enfer. Mais filmer ça m'a motivé. Ici, tout est beaucoup plus compliqué. La vie comme le tournage.
Aujourd'hui, beaucoup de Canadiens. Aujourd'hui, il a beaucoup de Canadiens. Oh. Pas ma photo avec ça. Non, non, non. Ça là, non. non. Voilà. Prends ça là. Hein. Prends ça là. Il faut prendre.
Vous voyez ça, on va prendre ça pour aller revendre ça encore pour gagner, tu vois, le cigare. Le prix du cigarette, hein, c'est ça?
Oui.
C'est ça.
Si on ne prend pas le choix, on va trouver cigarette.
Il n'y a pas le choix. On prend ça, on ramasse ça, les canettes là, les bidons vides. On va les revendre encore au supermarché pour avoir encore, tu vois, le prix du cigarette. C'est normal. Plus le procès dure, je me rends compte que l'asile tue à petit feu. Le système d'asile nous rétrograde en arrière. Sans le document ici en Europe, tu n'as pas de vie. Tu n'es pas considéré comme humain. Nous nourrissons un espoir de réussite. Mais au fil du temps, nous comprenons que nous n'avons pas de chance dans l'asile. L'asile nous détruit. Chaque personne manifeste sa folie à sa manière. Le plus grave, c'est l'isolation. On n'a pas les moyens pour accéder à d'autres personnes, d'accéder à d'autres milieux. On reste entre nous, toujours. Tu vas en ville avec les mêmes personnes dont tu vis. Tu retournes de la ville avec ces mêmes personnes. Tu ne fais aucune nouvelle connaissance. On vit dans une prison à ciel ouvert.
So this was an extract from Abu's second film, Ma Nouvelle Vie Européenne, which shows the material and immaterial borders and boundaries in Germany. Abu, do you want to say a bit more about that and about this second film?
Yeah, this second movie is about Europe. It's about European life, in asylum camp. And as you can see, it's like invisible in a border. This life, if you are asylum seeker here in Germany or in Europe, it's not easy for you, to be part of human, part of the people where you are living, part of society. Because the system already isolates you, to marry, to put you outside of society. Excuse me. Yeah, that's why I said so. Where we were, me and my friend, we were, taking so the bottle of Canet, drinking, Canet, so in the forest. I make this scene, to advise my young brothers, my fellow brothers, those who are living in Africa, to let them know the way that they are thinking about Europe is not so that Europe that they are thinking. Europe it's not easy. It's a very difficult here. Once you get here in Europe, it's not mean you get everything, because it's the way that we used to think. We were already influenced by European television, by European lifestyle, everything that, where, our brothers, those who were here in Europe, those who who went in Africa for vacation, the way that they influenced our life, in which also they are material things, we have to know and to, that, once you get here in Europe, it's not easy. You have to fight, you have to keep fighting. And I said again, so in this movie, that Europe here without document, you are nothing. Yeah, it's true, you are nothing. Because the system, the way that the system will treat you, it's like, so, even so the animal, so they are better than you, and I will never understand that. And I think so, the real person with a real mind will never understand that how because they treat us, like we are not human, and because of a document. You don't have document here, so in Europe, mostly so here in Germany, you are nothing. You can't walk, you can't do nothing, you can't be part of society. Like me right now, yeah. Because of the support of my friend Vera knows, and with Vera and Vera friend also, I got my house building here. And with this house building, it was just, to how, to stay here and to have to with time during the time and to have something, to stay in Germany. But with this house building, it's not easy because of language, and it's going hard, for me. And I have to search another thing. All those things are, the way to explain how things are difficult here. So if you are asylum seeker, yeah. And about the movie also, I put it so in an image, which kind of people we are living, which kind of, nationality we are living. We are living together with. In my room, when I was in Bayern, in my room, it was not a room. It was like a corridor with 6 men who are living together with, different nationality: Nigerian, Gambian, Senegalese, Malian, I'm Malian, and with also Afghanistan. And look at this, different culture. We don't know each other, and we are obliged, to live the same life. And if you are not strong, as I said, you will manifest your madness, because the things will always going through bad things, and yeah, that's the way that we are living here in Germany, and it's not the reality. So the people, the society doesn't know the reality. They just, listen to the television, what the television said or what the radio said, and it's not true. If they want to know the truth, I think, it's to be close to those migrants, those asylum seekers who are living in asylum camp. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is really important that you made this second film as well. And it is actually available on YouTube in full length. So I very much recommend to everybody in the audience to watch the whole film. I have one last question to the speakers from my side. And then you're welcome to ask your own questions. You can either ask them directly or you can post them in the chat. My question to all our speakers is, so we have now traced the externalization of the border, the external border, the internalization of the border, and I would like to hear from you on how these are connected. What are the commonalities and differences between these borders and boundaries? Maybe Laura, you can go first.
Sure. I mean, I think I would have a lot of things coming to my mind now, but maybe just as a start, for example, many of my research participants connected these different sites in their life experiences. So I met a man who was homeless in Belgium before, then he was deported to his home country, then he decided to leave again for migration. He lived in Algeria and Morocco, and then he was deported from Morocco to Algeria and then back to Niger. So we see these crazy trajectories of people which shows so much strength, as Abu has already shown, but also so much violence that people experience and that they have to cope with in their lives. And I think this is one thing that connects these different spaces. And then another thing I really liked about what Abu said also was that you always need people, you always need to get to know people who can provide you with some kind of resources that will help you to improve your situation in different places. I think we always think about Europe as this place where there's this working welfare state or something where people can get by even if they don't know anyone. But in reality, it helps a lot if you find someone who can assist you with finding an Ausbildung, for example, or also in Niger to get some extra food, because like in Niger, it's very common to invite people to eat together, even if you do not have a lot to share yourself. So I think these points have come up very well for me in these talks. And then I think one underlying point would still be if we think about what happens inside Europe and what happens outside Europe, and we make a distinction between that, this is already quite a, let's say, a border thinking, or thinking of from the nation state. So we already separate these spaces that are actually deeply connected and interrelated. And this is also important to bring these back together, as you did in the setup of this event, to have different people working on different sites coming together and exchanging these ideas. And yes, I think this is what I would say for the moment, and then maybe later on I can still add to it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in a way, in the thematic structure of this evening, we have divided inside and outside a bit in order to have, a kind of path to climb along. But of course, you're completely right that this is an artificial distinction between inside and outside. And in the end, it's all interconnected, and we have to question and critique and describe the border regime as a whole.
But just maybe to add to that quickly, because I think there's still a very big difference if you, for example, if you're an asylum seeker in Niger or if you're an asylum seeker in Germany. I mean, Abu showed all the violence and difficulties this brings about. But I think a lot of people I met in Niger, if they had been an asylum seeker in Europe, they would have said this is a big gain, where at least I have a few months to try to establish something, or go into hiding afterwards. They still saw it as quite a difference, and then here later on comes the shock. So I would also say there are big differences still, and we should also mention them, of course. But then our realities in different places are rather connected, and this is something that is also not that often seen.
Yes. Abu, do you also want to comment on these similarities and differences between borders and boundaries here at Europe's borders, beyond them?
Yeah, for me, as I don't know how things going on. So in Africa, example for so in Niger, how asylum seeker, how they are living, and if it's the same structure like here in Europe, but I will talk about here in Europe. For me, so if you are asylum seeker in Africa, even so there is difficulties. For me, there is always the way for you, to return back to your country. You are not separated from your country, from your homeland by miles of, many 1,000 kilometers. But here in Europe, once you get here in Europe and you are asylum seeker and you don't know when you return back, and you return back so in your homeland alive, or you will see your family alive, you don't know. There is it's really difficult, for asylum seekers here in Europe, because you don't know when you will get document here. You don't know, because some people, the lucky ones, when they come here, they are lucky, they can get asylum. They can get a resident permit here. So it's an asylum seek, and maybe 1 year or 2 years. And those who are not lucky, like the person like me, I'm here 5 years and I'm doing my best, to be integrated. And I try by my own way to be integrated in the society. But, with all those things, I'm still in nowhere, and I don't know when. So I return back in Africa, when I will see my family. All those stuff in my mind can drive people crazy. People like me, if you are not strong, you become crazy, and that's why I would say those who are asylum seekers in Africa, it's easy for them, because if the things are turning wrong, you have the choice, to return to your country. If the thing's not good, you have choice to return to your country. And here, once you here, it's not easy for you to say, okay, I have choice, to return to Africa without nothing, because the people was count on you and your family was looking for you. It's not way for you to say, okay, I return back because things are not working here. You will be obliged to say, okay, I will stay here. I will do everything, to get success here. And you don't know when, so you'll get success, to get document and to be able, to work, to have work, and to be stable here, and to send money back to your family. We are here, to have something, to work, to have something, and to send back to Africa, to have our family back in Africa. And if there is no possibility, and you are 20 years, 10 years, 5 years in asylum center, and I think, it's a really difficult. And for me, it's not easy. It's not easy. And the difference is between, asylum in Africa and here is that, so in Africa, you have choice, to return back to your country. And here, there's no way, because if you return back, you have to fire back, back you. And here also, it's not going well for you. Yeah. That's also my comment, to add.
Answering your question, Vera, for me, it's really, there is a differences. For example, people here are living in camps, living in lagers, living in, as Abu Bakr said, open air prison. Most of the African countries, transit countries, they don't have camps. People live outside, some in migrant centers, but mostly they don't have camps. So people live in the society itself. They don't feel isolated as refugees and asylum feel in Europe. Or let's talk about, in Europe, but really Germany is one of the extreme examples for sure, because of the society, of the social behavior, and also the social relations between people themselves. It's hard to get the access to know not just the new people, but to know your rights, to know your way. You waste a long time, years, until you find, it was actually easy to go that way. And as for you as German or people living in Germany, every step you need a Beratung. Every step you need a consultant, even if you're raised here. So imagine for a refugee, for not just a refugee, a migrant, a foreigner just decide to come and to live here in Germany. It's really hard. And then there is this structural racism, and it's actually shared between here and between Africa. But here also you see it as people talking on behalf of refugees. They are talking like they know what the refugees want or what they are looking for. So let's provide you the food coupons, because for sure you want to eat. Let's try to secure your financial situation, and then you find them just give them like 170 euros up to 300 euros a month, and there is no access to work, and also the access to health. If you are asylum, find yourself kind of detained in this period. You are not a refugee, you don't have a permanent residence, you don't have health insurance, and you keep running from NGO to another and from organization to another just to find the way. So this is the problem. I would say, for example, in Africa, there is a spaces given to refugees to speak about themselves, even if it's a tiny chance. In the opposite side here, when we are living in a society when the freedom of expression is right for everyone, you find people, white citizens talking about refugees, talking about what Black needs. And also there is a very structural racism in my eyes when it comes to nationality. So if you are Syrian, if you are high educated North African, if you came from Afghanistan or from Iran with high education, from Turkey because of political situation, it's easy and easier to earn your refugee status. But if you are from Africa, from Western Africa, no, you are an economical migrant. You are just coming here to get a bite from the cake. But there is no cake actually, because people are suffering and struggling, and their life both waiting for a paper. So this is a big problem here. This is I see it a big difference in this what we call global South or Southern Mediterranean. They see it clearly. We don't have national law. We don't provide papers for refugees until a certain moment, and they could live here as others. And anyways, there is a lack of everything and lack of rights even for citizens. But when you come here, it's a hypocrisy. Refugees are living like a third degree. I don't like to say animals, because we are not animals, and we are not citizens. But people are living like a third degree human beings in the country. And it doesn't matter if I have a paper, if I don't have a paper. Because with the stereotype and the mainstreams, they will look at me and to Abu Bakr and to anyone else have the same skin color, are the same. You are a refugee coming here trying to get a chance over our society and the opportunities here. But they don't see the other picture. Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to add a comment on what Mohammed said right now. Mohammed, you're definitely right what you say here. So in Germany, you have to be, I think so the Germans, so they don't know how so things going on here. So in asylum system here in Germany, I would say Germany. So in asylum system is a racist, the racism. So in asylum system here is institutional, and because why people like me, we try we knock every door, we try every way, to be integrated. There's no way for us, they don't want, to give the people like me chance, to live here. They just, they are, every day behind us, to try, every way, to send us back. Because of what? Because we are Black. Look at when I was in Bayern, I tried several times, to go to learn German. And there's what they say to me. They say, okay, in a sub-Saharan African migrant, we don't have right, to learn German. If so, we want to learn German, we have to pay German. And one course is 1 month is about 270 euro, and I receive 320 euro per month. And if I pay that, how I will survive in a month? And then they said to people like me, okay, if you are living in Bayern, you don't have right, to move to Hamburg or to move to Berlin. And I say that's nonsense. I'm human being like you. How so you can say to me, I don't have right, to move? On the paper, this housewife that you gave to me, you didn't write on this housewife that I don't have right, to move. And you say you limited so my mobility so in one area. And I found that that's nonsense. How it's going on here for me, it's like they put the people, the racist people, on this asylum system, to how to manage asylum system. And they select people. You are from Africa, you are from West Africa, you are from, so yeah, only Eritrean, they have right, to receive asylum, status here. If you want to receive asylum status here, so in Germany, you are from West Africa or Central Africa, you have to be, homosexual, or so the doctor, you have paper from doctor said, maybe so 1 year, so you die, or you are crazy, or you something like that. You don't have so any feature. You will die so next year, and they will be, they will give you asylum status. How? Why that? And they are the one who say, okay, yeah, we are trying, to make people understand the people. So we have Germany welcome thousands and thousands migrants here in Germany, and it's not true. It's not true. They just welcome to all those migrants because we were mixed, and they don't have any solution, any way, to select African migrant to Syrian and to those Arab migrant. If today they have that that solution that way, they will select us since 2015. They will, the time that migrant was coming here, so in Germany. But at that time, no. And we African, we already know. If you seek asylum here, you already know. So your answer will be negative. I'm from Mali. I'm from Mali, and when I made my interview, I said, okay, maybe so I will get positive. And when my answer came, they said, okay, Mali is safe country. And at that time, Germany soldiers, so they are going to Mali. And I said, wow, what is that? I didn't understand. And at the end, I would say, in a Germany asylum system, they put racist people, those who are managing asylum system here in Germany. And it's not easy to not be easy for African. Yeah.
I have many thoughts and also many more questions, but I want to give the audience a chance to ask questions if you want. You can either ask them directly with or without video, in English or in German or in French, and other languages probably as well. Or you can post them in the chat. Otherwise, what I would really like to know, after everything we've heard about structural exclusion, institutional racism, borders and boundaries everywhere, I would be really interested in hearing what you think can be done against it. So what are activist perspectives against the border regime? What role can legal interventions play? Does academia play a role or not? I think it would be great to hear your different perspectives on what to do, how different types of intervention complement each other, or maybe not, which ones really get somewhere and which ones not so much.
I can start maybe just to break it off. I don't think academia is, is helping or is the solution. Still, I think it's important that we also make good analysis in activist or academic circles on what's going on. I would hope that in the countries of origins, there could be more pressure being built up. But what I saw in Niger so far is not the case. I think Mali is an excellent example for it, where people have really put pressure on the Malian state to prevent these readmission agreements, because there are actually a lot of Malian migrants who are interested in keeping the ways to Europe open. And then of course there's also the movement of migrants, as I think, I'm not sure if it was Kashef or Abubakar already said, these movements will go on and people choose to move. So yeah, I think we maybe just need a lot of different strategies and combine them and support each other in our struggles instead of fighting different ways of fighting against the border regime.